If you watched our last episode, you already know this base. You already know this man. 25 years later, he was no longer a young captain looking up at the sky in disbelief. He was the most powerful officer in the Portuguese Air Force. And when a pilot landed at Ota with a story no one could explain, the general knew exactly what to do. This is the story of the 1982 Ota incident, and the day another UFO returned to the same airspace. Welcome to Seven Hills Tales. Come closer to the fireside. Some stories begin in the sky and land in history. This is one of them. November 2nd, 1982. A routine training flight from Base Aérea No. 2 at Ota. At the controls of a slow two-seater de Havilland Chipmunk was Lieutenant Júlio Guerra, a young pilot doing basic maneuvers on a clear autumn afternoon. Guerra was no ordinary observer. He had already logged thousands of flight hours. He knew what aircraft looked like from every angle, at every speed, in every light condition. The weather was perfect. Visibility was excellent. There was absolutely no reason for this day to be anything other than routine. But something extraordinary was about to happen in the skies near Monte Junto Mountain. While flying near the Monte Junto mountain range, Lieutenant Júlio Guerra suddenly noticed a bright metallic object approaching him at high speed. At first, he assumed it was another plane, a reflection, a weather balloon perhaps. But as the object closed the distance, his training kicked in, and nothing in his training had prepared him for this. It was a perfectly round, disc-shaped craft, metallic and highly polished, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror. He estimated it was only 3 to 4 meters in diameter, smaller than his own aircraft. Guerra grabbed the radio. "Tower, I have visual contact with an unidentified object at my altitude. It's approaching rapidly." What happened next was unlike anything recorded in Portuguese military aviation history. The object began to circle his slow training plane, mirroring his every move with impossible agility. When Guerra banked left, it responded instantly. When he climbed, it adjusted. It maintained a perfect, deliberate distance, as if observing him just as carefully as he was observing it. At moments it came so close that he could see the smooth, seamless surface in sharp detail. No rivets, no exhaust ports, no markings of any kind. Later analysis of the encounter would conclude that the object reached speeds of approximately 1,550 miles per hour while circling his aircraft, and executed 90-degree direction changes with zero transition time. For context, no aircraft in existence in 1982 or today can do that at low altitude without creating a sonic boom. There was no boom. There was no exhaust. There was no sound at all. The encounter lasted several intense minutes. Then, without warning, the object accelerated vertically at enormous speed and disappeared into the clear blue sky as if it had never existed. Guerra wasn't alone in what he experienced. Throughout the encounter, he maintained real-time radio contact with the control tower, and the tower personnel were tracking something too. Ground personnel at the base reported seeing a strange, bright object in the sky. Other pilots in the area were alerted. The sighting was not a private hallucination. It was a shared, documented event. This is what separates the 1982 Ota incident from most UAP cases. It didn't happen at night, in poor visibility, to a single tired observer. It happened in broad daylight, with perfect weather, to a trained military pilot, with corroboration from the ground and the air. After landing, Lieutenant Júlio Guerra was thoroughly debriefed. He was calm. He was precise. He described exactly what he had seen, in the language of a professional aviator, and he never changed his story. Not once. Not in the years that followed. Not in the decades. What happened next is what truly distinguishes this case. Rather than burying the report, The Portuguese Air Force Chief of Staff did something extraordinary. He authorized the full release of all records to a civilian scientific study group. That group was CNIFO, the Comissão Nacional de Investigação do Fenômeno OVNI, founded in 1982 and directed by historian Joaquim Fernandes, whose work would later become part of the academic record at Fernando Pessoa University. The investigation that followed drew on roughly 30 scientists and specialists, physicists, meteorologists, psychologists, engineers. It ran across 1983 and 1984 and produced a report of more than 170 pages. 170 pages for a sighting that the official account could have dismissed in a single paragraph. The conclusion? No conventional explanation could account for the object's described flight characteristics. The case was classified as genuinely unexplained. But here is the question that haunts this story. Why did the most senior officer in the Portuguese Air Force respond this way? Why not close the file, thank the lieutenant for his report, and move on? Because that officer was General José Lemos Ferreira. And 25 years earlier, he had been the young captain in the cockpit. In 1957, as a captain leading 4 F-84G Thunderjets out of the same OTA base, Lemos Ferreira had tracked a luminous object for 25 minutes as it changed color, changed size, and at one point sent smaller orbs toward his formation. He filed his report, and for years, he said, he received more attention from researchers abroad than from within Portugal. The military of that era had no interest in looking too closely. Now, as the highest-ranking commander, he found himself facing the exact same situation, but from the other side of the table. Perhaps he saw something of his younger self in Lieutenant Guerra. Perhaps, after all those years, he still carried the memory of what he had witnessed that night. Whatever the reason, General Lemos Ferreira made a choice. He took the case seriously. He ensured it was properly investigated. He made sure the documentation survived. The witness of 1957 became the protector of the witness of 1982. 2 major UFO incidents, same airbase, 25 years apart. One at night with jet fighters, one in bright daylight with a training plane. Both remain officially unexplained. And standing in the middle of both stories is the same man, first as a witness, later as the commander who chose not to ignore the next pilot who came forward with an impossible story. What do you think really happened over OTA? Are these 2 cases connected? Or is the coincidence something stranger still? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't seen the 1957 incident yet, the link is in the description. This story makes a lot more sense when you know where it began. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Until the next tale, keep looking up.